Hello, I was on a train with my friend and I was writing an article and we got into an argument. I said the word is womb, which is WOMMBE. He said no, the word is vroom, which is VOMB. And we carried on like this for some time. And a gentleman sitting opposite said, "Excuse me, dear people, but I am an eminent gynecologist and I assure you the word is womb, which is WOMB. To which I replied, "My dear sir, with all due respects, you've never heard an elephant breaking wind."
Yes, and the show starts on a very low fart gag like that and declines from there on. So anyway, we've dragged Paul England on, or English rather, sorry, on kicking and screaming. So good evening, Paul.
Hi, good evening, Eric. Yeah, I am kicking. I don't think I'm kicking and streaming. I'm sort of just. Am I kicking and streaming though? There you go. There's
in streaming. You never know.
Yeah, it's all gone a bit grim. I don't know what the weather's like with you, but it's gone super grim here today, and it's all dark and gloomy and very warm. It's still warm and muggy, which is quite nice. But yes, we're just having one of those little days before we have an Indian summer in September, right? That's what I'm saying anyway. So,
well, best weather is always September, and my granddad used to say, "Oh, the bosses always go on holiday in September." We didn't have a northern accent, but he used to say that.
Didn't he?
And he was right, because the bosses go on holiday in September because it's the best weather. It's always good weather, generally, in September. We had a crummy June. July wasn't all that good. And then we've had a good August. But today it's overcast. Can't even see the chemtrails, and I miss them. I don't know about you. You wake up in the morning, it's nice to see the nice spaghetti sort of chemtrails all going across the sky. It's exciting, isn't it? Do you find that?
I do, yeah. But although, maybe I've not been looking too hard, but I've not noticed that many recently. And we've had a really, I don't know what it's like. I think I droned on about this the other day, but we've had a great stretch of weather down here, really, the whole of August, right up to almost like today. We've had 5 or 6 weeks of pretty stable, jolly good weather. There was a few windy nights and things, but nothing untoward. It wasn't sort of like several days in a row. It's been sort of like one slightly poor day and then 8 or 9 really good ones, and that's what's been going on. So, and I've not noticed anything. I thought, the whole of the chemtrail things just stopped. I don't, of course, mean
around
that.
here, yes. But do you get withdrawal symptoms if you don't see them? You think, oh no, you get a bit twitchy. There's something wrong.
The sky, something's missing in the sky. Yes, the sky at night with Patrick Moore. Well, I say, and all that kind of stuff. So yes, the sky at night. I've not pursued chemtrails with any great earnestness, but there's a thing floating around about what is it that they think they're dropping out of that stuff? Aluminium. I think it's aluminium particles, isn't it, or something like that? Yeah. So you've got aluminium, you've got Wi-Fi, you've got fluoride in the water. And I understand that all those 3 things cause tremendous damage to the pineal gland. That's right. Calcify it and to shut it down. And in fact, I was with a good chum who I only see every now and again on Friday evening. I just managed to go out. It wasn't even for a beer for me, Eric. I went out for a lime soda. How about that? I don't know what that says about me. Probably not something very manly, but yeah. So, but he gave me something which is in the house, and I can't remember what it's called now. But he said, "Look, spray that under your tongue, and it'll stimulate and clean up your pineal gland." So, I haven't taken any before the show, otherwise it might get really weird and I might start saying things. But we were talking about this. It's key that there's been an attack on the pineal gland, hasn't there? And it's pretty damn important. I think it's colossally important, that gland. So
I agree with you. And we're home to get Miles. The Fockham Hall doctor. He was due to be coming on, I think, on the 8th, but he's moved. That'd be Sunday the 22nd of September. Granny Knows Best, a show called Granny Knows Best. And I'll ask him about the Pineal and that stuff that you spray. I might be seeing him this Wednesday, so I'll ask him about that. But First of all, in chat,
It's
we've
to do
got
with peptides. Peptides. It's just run into my head, Eric. I know we're not.
Ah.
This is not what the show's about tonight, but I'm just. If I say it to you now, then when I forget it next time, maybe you'll remember it. So peptides, something to do with that. Russians have been looking into them for a long time, and apparently they are pretty powerful things. So all part of it. You can see what a neophyte I am around here. I just say general things like that without really understanding what I'm talking about. This is true. So I'm a bit like a man, with a gun who doesn't know quite how to shoot it, which can be a bit dangerous. But yeah, I think looking in these different areas is useful. I think it's a good use of time.
Now, there's an interesting question for you. You see, I've got to be careful because it's YouTube. So these G type tower things, but I won't say. I'll just put that up in front of the screen.
What, the 4+1?
That's
4+1 or 3?
1.
4+1s.
That's it. The 4+1s tower going up, and I was talking to Nathan the other day, and I said, there's one. It's just about 100 yards from a doctor's surgery one way, and about 100 yards from an infant school the other way. And in the front, it's about 100 yards from an old people's home. And makes a noise. It's belting out a load of heat. It's awful. I mean, I cycled past it the other day, and the heat was blasting out. And I drove past it, my arm out side of the side window. I could feel the heat from the other side of the road. And Nathan said, hang on a moment. That's exactly the same as what I've got where I live. There's a doctor's surgery about 100 yards one way and an infant school 100 yards the other way. Interesting.
Yes.
One similar where you live, but you've got these 4+1 things up.
I think there are. There are, Eric. I know that. I've not been along. I've just been I've had my hands full domestically, as it were, for the last 10 or 12 days. They just have been a little bit hectic. But I know I've seen something. In fact, I'm meeting up with a group that I normally meet up with every other Tuesday. It's tomorrow. So it might be a catch-up discussion about this. But there was the installation of a 4+1 taking place about 6 or 7 weeks ago. That got thwarted by local resistance, basically. They just created a human ring fence around it. They had to go. And I believe another attempt is being made to put it up. We don't want any of this stuff. It's silly. I want to get back to carrier pigeons, or possibly even better still, running footmen, messenger boys. Yeah. Eric, how about that? Running around with little, wax-sealed letters written by the squire with a quill and ink. What's all this rush about all this communication stuff? People just send all this stuff really fast, and when you get it, it's complete rubbish. There's no point. I'm sorry.
Well, people used to love having their fountain pens. I used to go to a place called His Nibs in London, near Holborn it was, His Nibs.
Right.
And you could buy all different special nibs for your fountain pens. But that's long gone now, unfortunately. I think. I don't know. It might still be around. But I was going to say, in chat, we have a quick sniff in chat, shall we? There's Matt in Kingston. Good evening, Eric. All the best from your Kingston attaché to Fockham Hall. The Kingston Whittler. Oh, by the way, we haven't got a punchy title for you. Are you the cultural attaché to Southeast England, or just Sussex?
Who, me?
I don't know.
Who, me? I don't know. I could be the ambassador to Sussex, or maybe part of the Fleet Air Arm, or maybe. There aren't any Navy installations down here, so I can't really sort of fob you off with that one. I don't know, really. Yes, Sussex, of course, is South Saxons. I don't know. You'll have to think of it. I mean, you'll have to come up. You're President, El Presidente, or maybe I'll think of a good title. I don't know. Yeah. So all jolly good. So yeah, I'd like a title. Do I get a large hat? I've often thought, Eric, that the whole world really runs on hats. Yes. I've had a theory about hats, and of course, people have stopped wearing them, haven't they? But if you look at it, a lot of history of power is completely associated with hats. The hats of power, and do they do that with the Pope?
I won't say the John Wayne joke. There are children watching.
There are children going sloping off to bed. Yes, there are. There are a huge family audience right now. Yeah, I think you're right.
It's brilliant to hear you both. Hello, Paul, too. That's from Matt in Kingston. And we've got greetings from Ireland. What bit? The north bit or the south bit?
You might have got into trouble there. I mean, if it's south, of course, you might have, really. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, evening, Kingston Whittler. That's the Kingston Whittler, isn't it? It's Matt. Manning
That's
King is
right,
a Kingston whittler.
Yes.
He gets around a bit with his whittling.
And
Nice to see you again, Matt.
And that's life, but not as we know it. Good evening, inmates. And then we got Hereditous Get Fucked. Pep me up, Paul. Well, that's pretty between you and him, I think.
Right.
On with the show with Demonocracy. Now, have you noticed that everything is back to front? Have you noticed that? So ugly is beautiful, and beautiful is now ugly. You look at buildings. I mean, you look on that bloody thing from in Hammersmith that the architect Goldfinger designed. I think on the back of a cigarette packet in 5 minutes.
Oh yes,
it's grade 3. It's grade 2 listed now. What's it listed under? Crap. I mean, is that are we talking? I'm thinking of a horrific building, but I don't know if it's in Hammersmith. I can't. Yeah. Because
I've not lived in London for quite a while now. I know of a hideous building. Actually, I know of lots in London. So, have you got a name for this building? I mean, whilst you're talking about it, I wanted to do a search so I could see it and then try and keep my supper down.
I can never remember the bloody name. It's so hideous. It sort of erases from my brain almost immediately. That's
maybe not such a bad thing.
But if you put Goldfinger Architect Hammersmith in the search, you'll see it because he's famous for it.
Is he?
Yeah, and I said on your show once, I'll repeat myself again, but and that is that the chap who who wrote James Bond, he hated his architecture so much that the arch villain he named after him, Goldfinger.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Are you sure? Is that really? Why?
That is 100%.
Wow.
Yeah. Was it Fleming? That was it. Ian Fleming.
So it's Erno Goldfinger, isn't it? Or Emo
Goldfinger. He had no sense of humour. He was a Marxist, I believe. So he's got all the credentials. But you notice how back to front that building is. It's called I can't think the name of it. I call it the shithouse building. I mean, it's just horrible.
Yeah. It is the one. It is the one. I can see it here. That's exactly the building that I was thinking about. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's the one that's got these sort of there's 2 sections to it, and it's got these passageways. I'd love to be able to post it somewhere so that everybody could see how hideous it is. And there's a picture of him smoking a cigar with a cravat and one of those sort of silly Russian hats. Well, they're not really silly, but he's got one and looks quite silly. Yes. Born in 1902 in Budapest, Hungary, Goldfinger was educated in Vienna and Switzerland before he began an architecture course, which he obviously has never completed, at the École des Beaux-Arts in the Atelier, private workshop or studio of architect and urban planner Leon Jousley in Paris. I probably mullered his name, in the 1920s.
Yeah.
Well, he's absolutely crap. And this building needs to come down. It just needs to be blown up, actually. Well, it's just total rubbish.
I told you the story of the meeting I got booted out of, and I got instant dismissal because I'm not normally. When you're a contract bloke, you keep your mouth closed and your eyes down. You just get on with your work. And there's something about that morning. It was a January morning. I'd had a rotten journey to work. I didn't really like the project I was working on. I just didn't like the place where I was working, and we were sitting in having this meeting, and there was this effeminate photographer and this building looked like, if you looked at a cornflake packet, that would be a model of the building. A cornflake packet, that's basically it.
Yes.
It's in London Wall, you see, and they're trying to. And he said, well, we could get the lighting round here, and then we could put the lighting over there. And I think it's absolutely beautiful and stunning.
It's a bit too good. You're doing that a bit too well, frankly.
I am actually, yes. I might get a lot of friends after the show. And my pissed off-ometer was going over to the red more and more and more.
Was it?
And he had all these Ponzi characters in there. Oh, Ralph, I think that's marvellous, Ralph. I think the aesthetic qualities that could be brought out from the 60s can be, and he's going on all these pontifications, all these big words, and I'm sitting there getting more and more pissed off. And luckily, I had another contract up my sleeve, and it got to the point. And have you ever had a time when your mouth overrides your brain? I had that as
No, never. That's never happened to me ever. I've always been in perfect control. Yeah, right.
Mouth
Yes, I have.
Totally out. Totally out. Not me. Totally out of character. And I said, I think Blaster Bates and a load of TNT would make a vast improvement. Get out.
Really? He got a bit cross, did he?
Yeah, he got a bit upset about that.
Oh, that's sad, isn't it?
I can hear him going, bastard. Yes. Don't come back. Can you solve the time sheet, please?
Eric, by the way, in the YouTube chat, I've put a link to the hideous picture of the hideous building. Right. It's at heritagecalling.com, so you'll see it in the YouTube. I don't think it flashes up as an actual hyperlink, but the URL's there. So if anybody wants to go, brace yourself. It's an absolute ridiculous photograph because, let's face it, his cigar is actually more interesting than the building he's put up. It's childish. The building's like the sort of thing a kid would build when he was 6, thinking about, oh, let's put some funny... And of course, it's hideous, and it's the most khaki sort of concrete colour. And it just dominates the space, and it's incredibly depressing and gloomy, which all Marxist architecture is designed to be. Yeah. It's to demoralise and subdue and remove beauty from the public spaces, because they don't want any of that, because it gets people all giddy about not being communists. They want them all miserable, and then communism appears to be attractive.
Well, what got me is that Prince Charles, when he was Prince Charles, started going on about architecture, and I started to agree with him. What's wrong with me? And
yes.
Then he's become all World Economic Forum, and I think they plugged into his brain or something. He then lost it, and then he just went. But it's a bit like Churchill.
I agree.
Once upon a time, he said some good things, then all of a sudden, he just lost it. And Charlie Boy's completely lost it now. I mean, but what he said about architecture, he said there was a building in London. He said it looked like a carbuncle. I agree with him. It looked like a bloody carbuncle. I mean, it's awful. And when you go around the city, the amount of demonic architecture there is. I mean, have you seen the Dracula building? Is that what it's called?
Is that what it's called? No, I probably haven't. Is it? If these are things that have gone up in the last 20 years or so, I probably haven't seen much, because I left London in 2001, A Space Odyssey, and I've been back maybe a handful of times. There's not been any real compelling reason to go back, and when I do go back, it's basically to see someone. So I'm not really trying to put time aside to go and look at gruesome architecture, but I should imagine quite a bit of it's sprung up since then. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean, it really is the pits. I mean, I don't know what's happening around where you live, but where I live, it used to be very famous for market gardening, and
right,
we had the Rochford nurseries. And about 20 years ago, I was spoilt for choice. I just, about 10 minutes walk from my house, I could go to any nursery and buy some cucumbers, tomatoes. It's fresh off the vine. That's all gone now. All these rabbit hutch, sprawling, awful housing estates going up. All cheek by jowl, vile, no individualism, all very collectivism, everyone the same. Was it little boxes made of ticky-tacky? That's all it is. And
I know.
I lived in the country at one time. Now I live in this urban sprawl, and it's all around me. And it's awful. It really is. It's so depressing as well. But what gets me is how corrupt the council is. Because what they're doing now, they're having these public consultation. It's not a public consultation. It's a foregone conclusion before it starts. And the questions are all loaded. So whatever you say, what they want goes ahead. But it's just to show that, we're being a little bit democratic, But then what is democracy? I think you summed it up. Democracy is mob rule, isn't it? As you said.
Well, it is. It is. It's slow burn communism. That's what it always leads to, because it just does do that. And so it must be that. So that's really what it is. It's a way of just getting everybody
my
riled
phone's
up and
going
think.
berserk and all of that. I should switch it off really, but people
Oh,
are
I
making
don't know.
comments.
It makes for an irritating interlude. It's quite good, really.
It
I
sounds like
don't
being on a
mind.
bus. Ding ding. Next stop.
It sounds
will
like
be-
you're very, very. I think it sounds like it makes you sound like things are very, very important in your life, and that sends out a good energy wave. That I like that. I think it's really good. You should be having people knocking on the door, dogs barking, everything. Oh, hang on, just a minute. There's just this really lively space going on. So, yeah.
Well, we got Matt in chat says Matt in Kingston says I travel past the eyesores that have been built on the old Nine Elms Goodyard between Clapham and Vauxhall each day. Just tower after tower of gulag, shoebox flats, a true smart city. Well, it's like Thamesmead when that was built in the 70s. Did you know they had a squad, a police sort of boat on the River Thames, and they had a sort of special units going around trying to stop people committing suicide because it was a almost weekly occurrence that someone would top themselves by jumping off the top of
Really?
the roof. Yeah, and that was Thamesmead, and I've seen it from a distance. That's all I really wanted to see it from the distance. It's horrible. It makes a gulag look like Butlins. I mean, it's awful. It's just bland grey concrete everywhere, with these modern art, which is just like sort of bits of stone sticking up and girders sticking up and things like that. But what we got in chat is that's life, but not as we know it. It says we have golden sandstone here. Do we really? Well,
I wonder where here is. Where's here?
have you tried ointment? That might clear it up, or something like that, or aspirin. Camera says, "Hello, everyone. Hello, camera. I won't tell anybody, but you're actually in the north of East Anglia, aren't you? I think you're in Norfolk. Here we go. Now we've got DJ Flipped on one of his walk and talk videos. Max Egan shows some before and after pictures where magnificent buildings have been replaced with bland, ugly ones. That's progress, I suppose not. Yes. And Angela Dempsey says, same as Kent, little village now, a ugly square box town. Yes, I agree. And Camera says, there is no such thing as democracy in a dictatorship, and it is plain to see we live under dictators. They just let the fools believe their votes count. That's right. It's for the common good, isn't it? That's what they say.
Yeah.
And that's life and not as we know it. It says, I'm up in Morayshire, northeast Scotland. Well, someone's got to be. We all got to be somewhere, haven't we? So good for you. So you're
Morayshire.
Morayshire,
Yeah, nice.
Scotland. Yes, very nice too. Yes, but really, when you look, how have we drifted into this? I mean, how long ago? I can't actually put my. Some people say 1945, but I think it goes back further. I really do, and I think it goes back possibly to the Industrial Revolution. I mean, what's your feelings on this, Paul?
I don't know, really. I mean, I'm trying to think about the last movement in architecture that I liked, and it's probably Art Deco. Now, when's that? When's Art Deco?
That was 1920s and 1930s.
That's it. That's after that. It's all crap.
Yeah, I think Art Nouveau is my favourite, and I didn't go that much on Art Deco, but Art Nouveau is, and that ended in 1914 in Europe, and in about 1927 in America. It ended
right.
later. Yeah, and
I mean, there's some beautiful things done. I mean, people bang on about Frank Lloyd Wright. Okay. I don't know. I just find the things a bit boxy, Whenever it gets a bit boxy, I'm kind of out of there. I know there's a lot of detail and stuff and other things, and they're always talking about urban planning and all these other things, but they're living in a kind of little laboratory where it's all in the perfect world. It's not really what's necessary or is even affordable by the great mass of people. I mean, but yes, I remember the Chrysler building, which I've seen in real life. You can probably still see it now because it's still there in New York. Yeah, and if you go up the Empire State Building, which is not bad for a skyscraper, but you look across at the Chrysler building, you go, now they've really knocked themselves out to add something at the top. This wonderful sort of Art Deco, maybe it's Art Nouveau, I don't know. All this great stuff at the top of it. And you go, if you're going to build a skyscraper, that's probably the way to build it. It just looks fabulous. And it sends out a sort of, what it is I think anything where there's an attempt to bring in a kind of higher vision of beauty in whatever capacity you think it is, has appeal. And when it's permanently absent, like in the doodlings of Emo Goldfinger, this is just box nonsense, right? And then, of course, whenever it's like that, you find that they write more about that stuff than anything else. They have to try and distract you from the fact that it's complete shit. And it's just crap. The whole thing about modern art is just hilarious. There've just been a little clip on here that my son's been watching of Gordon Ramsay, and so, this is from a few years ago, down in a restaurant in Brighton, down the road from where I am. And he just made a scathing comment about the art on the walls. It was this modern art stuff. He said, "Who did that?" He said, "Oh, it's a local artist." I'm sort of spluttering. I mean, people. It's not the fact that they paint this nonsense; it's that people actually pay for it and stick it up in restaurants and make you want to be ill. I mean, why would you go into? It's anyway. I think I'd love the idea of going back to the old-fashioned stuff, which I guess they call kitsch, don't they, or something like it's tasteless and tacky and obvious. Yeah, well, that's for me. Thanks, and that's what I want. Thank you very much. I want it by people that can actually paint and draw and actually have a vision to try and get it across. And it's the same with architecture, really. Very similar, you know.
Well, I don't do with this, the folding stuff, the money. That's really what it's to do with, because I worked on the Billingsgate redevelopment. One of the best projects I've ever worked on, actually. I really enjoyed that. And we was looking through copies of drawings that were drawn in the 1880s and 1870s. And you looked at the north sign on the drawing, and it was a work of art because they had time to do it. Because, I know it's the same for you because you were in architecture. You just had a stencil, just went, that was a north sign. That was done in a few seconds, and then bang, you carried on designing. But the thing is, in those days, they were artists, real artists, and the writing was absolutely copper plate, beautiful printing, and it was so skillful. But again, it takes time, and it was thoroughly built. When you look how solid it was built, it was incredible, and they were knocking it down and refurbishing it, and putting up a load of. Well, I won't say, but they're quite nice architects to work for. But it was a good project I worked on, quite a lucrative one as well. I enjoyed it. But the thing is that when you look back on those old drawings, it was a totally different world because, again, they had the time and they had the money to do it. And also in those days, if you worked for so many years in an architect's office, you're automatically architect. You didn't have to pass anything, RRB or anything like that. You were an architect, and I think that changed in 1964. Before 1964, if you worked for so many years and served your apprenticeship, so to speak, then you were an architect. And I've worked with quite a few architects that never passed Part 1, Part 2, or Part 3 in RRBA. So yeah. I never got that far, really. I was just working in a housing company, plotting sewage pipe drops. Oh, lovely.
It was very exciting. Here you go, Paul. Right, here's all the ground levels. The sewage pipe it must not descend at a very steep angle, and it must not descend at too shallow one, otherwise everything gets a bit gummed up. Yes. Do you get the drift? Yes, I understand. So I had to lay all these things out and create. It was quite straightforward in the end, but of course I bumbled around. However, have you ever heard of an author called Tom Wolfe? Wolfe.
No, can't tell.
He wrote a thing called Bonfire of the Vanities and other novels, which made him quite famous. I don't know if he's still alive, but one of the books he wrote, and I read this when I was rather young, is called From Bauhaus to Our House. You ever heard of that?
I have heard of that.
No?
Bauhaus.
Yeah.
It was another word for crap, isn't it, I think?
Yeah, well, Bauhaus came out of the Frankfurt School and all that stuff. Yeah, absolutely. So
less is more. That's what I used to say.
And I've just been doing a quick sort of, as you've been talking there, I wanted to do a quick scan to sort of refresh my brain. And let me just read it. This is from the Wikipedia entry, which is right on track, really, with what we're talking about. It says, a 1981 narrative of modern architecture written by Tom Wolfe. And it says... let me just find the bits where they all get upset with him. Okay, so Wolfe bluntly lays out his thesis in the introduction to From Bauhaus to Our House with a riff on the patriotic song America the Beautiful. I'll just read the lyrics. I'm not going to sing them because they're not. It says, "Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, has there ever been another place on earth where so many people of wealth and power have paid for and put up with so much architecture they detested as within thy blessed borders today?" You know, so it's a very, very good book, and it goes on because I like this because it upsets the art critics. It says Woolf criticizes the tendencies of modern architecture to avoid any external ornamentation. Unlike the Chrysler Building, it's got external ornamentation, right? That's why I like it. Woolf praised architects like Louis Sullivan, I don't know how it was pronounced, who from the late 19th century to his death in 1924 built a number of ornate buildings. Woolf turned his criticism on the international style and modern architecture, i.e. crap, exemplified by architects such as Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. He built or designed a lot of these skyscrapers in Chicago, complete boxes just going up. That's it. Le Corbusier.
Corbusier. Oh, don't start me off about him. Don't start me off about him.
I don't want him. It's a big architect's fight taking place. We need to turn it sort of like a Hell's Angel drama. Oh, you like Le Corbusier? Big punch up at the pub. The architects' battles. That's it. So the Corbusierists against the Sullivanists. I'd be with Sullivan. I'd be, a Sullivan guy. And Walter Gropius, seriously, who was the founder of the Bauhaus school in Germany, whose ideas influenced modern architecture and from which the title of the book derives. Woolf believed, I won't go on with the whole thing. He says, Woolf believed that the buildings of the international style and modern architecture could barely be appreciated by those who had to work in them. And not only that, he suggested that all the architects be rounded up and shot. Oh, no, I added that bit in. Yeah. I added that bit in.
Yes. I actually think that they ought to say, are you an architect? Yes. Have you had a history of mental illness? I think, because my particular forte, you see, what happened with me, you get a kind of, sort of variety artists. They get stereotyped, like Steptoe and Son, Harry H. Corbett got stereotyped into that role. Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes you get stereotyped into a role. This is 100% true, what I'm telling you now. And I got quite a talent for designing crab houses. And I was called Crab House Chris. And I went for an interview once for a 3-month contract. I went, "Oh, hello, you're Crab House Chris." Guess what we got? A lovely project. And guess what we'd like designed?
I don't know. A crap house, possibly?
You go to toilets, you see. I can name a few toilets that I've designed. You can go there and go, "Oh, yes, it's bloody nice."
I'll tell you what, I think, you know what, the Kazi is pretty important, and maybe you could come up with the Kazi Awards for the Fockham Hall Times or something. They should be given out to people, right? There's got to be one. I mean, basically what you're saying is that the crap houses that you designed are better than these crap buildings that Goldfinger and all these other Muppets have been designed, right? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And it was quite amazing. You get to a point where, I could design ladies' toilets. I've probably been in loads of ladies' toilets. Lawfully, quite legally, I've designed quite a few ladies' toilets, men's toilets. But the thing is that I'd worked on one project where they didn't think of ventilating the toilet, which, of course, is a legal requirement because there's no windows. I didn't think of that, did we? Of course, when you contract, you're last in because the project is in crisis, and you've got to work really fast. And if you've got a good name, your phone starts ringing. And the fact is, there's a penalty clause, so they've got to get this thing done as quickly as possible. So you've got to, you kind of, shall we say, it's taken off your drawing board whilst the ink's still wet. That's how fast it is. You go, no time to think. And this is why a lot of these housing estates, we call them ink slappers, because the people that worked on housing estates didn't have time to design anything. They just slapped the ink on. That's before CAD. And when you look around these housing estates, you can see they're not being thought about. They're not have had no real design thought. And they say architect design. No, it's not architect design. It's either trainee they put on it, the
Yeah.
GP person, or a technician, and that's it. Then it's not architect design. It's this waffle. That's total waffle. And you think, well,
Yes.
a better job, but really, this is the thing. They do not think things through because there's not enough time. You're given them 3 hours to do something that would normally take, say, a week. You do it in 3 hours because if you can't do it in 3 hours, they'll find someone that can. So you do it.
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
crook. And this is
Mhm.
how bad it really is. And of course, the design period, so I'm waffling on there, is an overhead. So they cut that as short and as short and as short as possible because they don't want an overhead. And that's the big problem. So,
Yes.
that's it. And now CAD has speeded it up even more, computer aided design. It is terrible. But back into the chat again, Camera has said, I live in a seaside village and all they are building there is the same estates. The frontage has pretty stone walls, but the rest of the estates just red brick with postage stamp gardens. That's right. Yes. Now we got here. Hello, it's Deb. Hello, Deb. Oh, by the way, I got a big apology to make, Deb. You sent me a very nice message in Facebook, and I haven't answered it yet. Most rude of me. I will answer it. Note from parents: be okay, or detention. So or lions. But I'll answer it.
Is that Deborah Singleton you're referring to there,
Singleton?
Eric?
Yes, that's right. No relation.
Hi, Deborah. She says I'm a fellow Yorkshire type person. I am, Deborah. Great, nice. I mean, of course, I'm not speaking very northern tonight because I'm with Eric. It wouldn't be right, would it? But this is, yeah.
It's fine. It's southerner,
No. Yes. Cool.
Anytime you want to come back, Deb, and it's very exciting on it. Aunt Sally, hello, Aunt Sally. Good evening.
Hello, Aunt Sally.
And then we got we got here, and we got Deb says hi, camera. Oh, and that's actually sorry, she's saying hello, camera. That's me. Yeah. Let's go down. We've got a few more in chat. Now where are we? Here we are. She said, I shall chat with Chris, that's Eric, and fit an appearance in at some point soon. Yes, and your very skillful adverts are still being used. So there we go. We might see a Deb advert a little bit later. You never know. It's very good.
Really?
Very good. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So we look forward to that, Deb. That'd be great. So
Deb's in Leeds as well. It says here she's in Leeds, where I come from. Eric, it's just all so weird. Who would have thought that more than one person came from Leeds? No, really. Yeah. Anyway, that's fantastic. Yeah.
I remember
There's
the 80s
two.
band. Do you really? What band? What 80s band? Okay.
Which 80s band?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
And it says, please remember to like and share. Thank you. Oh, that's very kind. Thanks, Deb, for adding that in. And we've got here, it's funny how most things in life seem to devolve. Music, architecture, medicine, just about everything. Yes, we can't say too much about the scene because we're on YouTube. But if we was on Rumble, we'd say what we want. Good evening, all. This is Robert. Hello, Robert. In nowadays, a grown man's presence, a grown man's presence on a lady's toilet is almost mandatory. Was it? Yes, you have, Chris. Have I really? I think I've got something out of context there.
Really? I'd not noticed.
No, I do take the tablets regularly, so it should clear up pretty soon. People haven't noticed. It's a medical condition I've got. You probably haven't noticed it. I'm actually bald. People don't realise I'm actually bald, but I hide it pretty well. I've got a sort of like a short comb over, No, actually, I tell people I've got a very wide central parting. That's the thing. I'm not bald. I've just cut my hair short and have a wide central parting, But now, anyway, we hope to get Deb back soon. But back to other things, like, for example, look at Carl.
Well, I'll tell you what, I just wanted to wrap up that little bit on the architecture stuff, because what the title, it's not really about architecture, is it? It's about things that are anti-life. And I do view modern architecture as a permanent anti-life thing.
Yeah.
And the problem with it is it's just always bloody there. These buildings are going to stick around for decades. This is the problem with it. They know what they were doing. But I was just reading a little bit more on this Wikipedia thing, and it sort of addresses the broader picture. It says, Wolf's critique of this junk, however, was not purely aesthetic. He was critical of what he saw as too much adherence to theory. Wolf characterized the architecture as based on a political philosophy. Hello, hello, hello. What a surprise. That was inapplicable to America. Yep. Arguing, for example, and Britain too, and the whole of Europe is totally inapplicable, that it was silly to model American schools on workers' flats for the proletariat. You don't say. Completely with you, Thomas. The architecture world, like an art world dominated by critics, and a literature world dominated by creative writing programs, this is true, was producing buildings that nobody liked. Well, I never. Many architects, in Wolf's opinion, had no particular goal but to be the most avant-garde, and therefore were deserving of execution by firing squad at dawn. Oh, no, I added that bit in as well, but I think that maybe this... Sorry, I got carried away. I didn't really mean that, everyone. It's not in Wikipedia. So I think this is really, really good stuff. I think this is excellent stuff, because that last point as well, everything has just become automated. You're talking about CAD CAM. There's a use for it up to a point, but now there's no creativity left. And I do think, I know this is sort of the old-fashioned way of looking at it, but I want the men that designed the buildings that I want to go in, I want them to know that they did it on large sheets of paper with pencils behind their ears, and a pencil sharpener and a pipe. And they spent a long time, and there's a lot of doodles and things like this. Right. I don't want to see them just press a button and all instantaneously flash up and be just a copy fit of everything else. I don't want that. But of course, the whole nature of the funding of buildings has changed as well. It used to be that to build those big things, you obviously did need a patron or something, because architects had to sit around for years designing this stuff. It wasn't easy, it's a very complicated thing. And but it's a fantastic art form, or should be. It's, you live in these buildings that are beautiful. So, and I still haven't got up to Notting Hill Gate. Well, I wasn't going to go last weekend. I didn't want to get stabbed, right? But I still haven't got up to Notting Hill Gate to see, to go to Leighton House. I don't know if I mentioned that when we've talked before, but Sir Edward Leighton, he's the guy that painted Flaming June, and his house is architecturally resplendent from the little images I've seen. It's supposed to be one of London's most interesting museums. So Leighton House, I think it's Leighton. I wasn't far from it actually when I was up there a couple of weeks ago in Holland Park, but I just didn't have time to get over there. But I've got it kind of on my pathetic little bucket list. I don't know, bucket's a bit grand really. I should call it my egg cup list or something. It's rather small. But I won't mind seeing that as well. So there is beautiful stuff. It's just that not much of it's going up new these days, that's all.
I actually put out a request, and I'll extend that request. And somebody sent me some pictures, and I wasn't really going to talk about architecture tonight, but we started off on it, so we carry on. But there's going to be, there was the Sterling Prize for architecture, and when I had a telly, I had to switch it off because I almost put a brick through the screen. There's this beautiful Highlands in Scotland. All the hills, you think of all the beautiful shape of the hills and the glens, and then there's this shoebox, some giant shoebox, which is a place where people wait to take the ferry, and you couldn't have made it more ugly if you tried. It looked like a kind of inverted ape swamp shelter, and it won a prize. This thing. Oh, when you look at the way the light filters onto it, and the sort of shape. It's a box, for Christ's sake, a concrete one as well. But I'm going to do the Fockham Hall Crap Architecture Awards. And what we're actually looking at is for people to, in their local towns, to send pictures in. I've already had someone send some pictures in of some crap architecture that looks like a Rubik's Cube on acid, and we're looking for the worst architecture, I'd say, around, and give it a prize. Why not? And I would say the TNT prize, or the, shall we say, the bulldozer prize, because it'd be great when we can blow these bloody awful buildings up. Also, sculptures involved as well. And I'm putting forward the Eyesore of the North. I don't know how you feel about it. Have you seen the Eyesore of the North?
Yes, that great big sort of block of The thing that really hasn't got any lines in it. There's got
That's
nothing in it. Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, and it just needs to be melted down and turned into, well, toilets, really. You could use it to fit it. Couldn't you have those nice steel toilets or aluminium toilets for public crap houses,
Yes,
and
but
that's it. That's all it's fit for.
Or possibly lynching MPs. I think you could get about 15, 20 either side. Either side, yeah.
Yeah. But they don't mean any harm, Eric. They're just thick.
Yes, I suppose so, really,
All the wars they cause and everything, it's just by accident, really. They don't really mean it. They're just too stupid to work out what they're doing.
Well, it's like you're saying about Keir Starmer, I mean, he does look as if he's like a sort of a Dalek on acid, isn't he? He's like, I mean, there's some talk that he went to Czechoslovakia when he was a student to put some memorial up about something that happened during the war. And the Czechoslovakian police at that time had a big file on him. And I actually wonder whether they did something psychologically to him at that time, did a sort of a Eastern European version of MK Ultra, because he looks as if he's had some treatment, because he's just sort of, he's spaced out, that man. He's not quite with the earth. I don't think he is the minister. Somebody else is pulling the strings. He's just the front man. And they say, okay, now there's your lines. Let's say them. Be a good boy. And you get a cucumber sandwich at the end. And an ice cream if you're a good boy. All right, well. And I think that's what he is. He's just like a robot.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with what was the thing they were whittering on about last week? Not being able to smoke cigarettes outside a pub. Or maybe outside at all, I suppose.
No, that's it. Banning
is that right?
Yeah, you're not allowed to smoke outside. So outside of where?
Right, Houses of Parliament? I don't know.
Yeah.
So where do you smoke? If you can't smoke inside and you can't smoke outside, do you have to go underground to smoke? Do you have to underground smoking pits? Is that what's going to happen? What's going on?
I know, you're going to have smoky toilets, aren't you? Because people are being a crapper sort of smoking.
Of course, it's of absolutely zero interest and importance. It's of literally no importance whatsoever. Absolutely zero. And but of course, it's important to them that you get distracted by it. People much more want to talk about the actual meat and potatoes of the thing, which is how are you going to stop and then reverse all the bogus migration that you and your cronies are actually responsible for, or have received orders to execute and put in place. And when are you going to make everybody happy? Not only us, but also the migrants that you're forcing to come here by setting up conditions to make it happen. But of course, we're not going to get round to that with this lot. I think, and one gets a little bit exhausted with it all, doesn't one? It's very, very difficult to not get exhausted with it. It's just that sort of thing.
Just pay per mile. How the hell are they going to what's going to happen with that? I mean, were they going to put it on fuel or something? I don't know. Whether we're going to have cameras taking pictures of your number plate everywhere you drive. God knows.
Yeah.
I've got a
when we were talking on Thursday, Eric, I mentioned that I'd always shoot my mouth off in supermarkets to actually engage people and ask them questions. Yeah. And that was really, really good. Well, on Saturday, just a few days gone, I had to, was it Saturday or Friday? Maybe I can't remember. One of those days, I had to just nip up road to get some envelopes, as you do, And as I came out, I look across the other side of the road where my car was parked. I hadn't seen it when I sort of parked up. And there was a little sort of stall there with people from the Reform Party, this political party, And there were about 5 or 6 guys of seasoned years, let's put it that way. So I just went over to listen to them. And then I said, hello, good morning, and all that kind of stuff, as you do. I said, can I ask a question? The same one. I said, what do you think is going to happen with the country under this Prime Minister? Well, it's just the same. It's just the same. It's really, I know I was banging on about it on Thursday, but sometimes you just do have to keep repeating these things over and over to really, get yourself clear about it. I'm pleasantly surprised by this, and I didn't vote for the Reform Party, so please don't think that just because I'm mentioning them, I'm going to do such a thing. But I was very interested in talking to them, and I did bring up the banking thing, and they all not a bit. Many of them stopped and started to listen to what I was talking about. It's not about me. I just said, look, I was talking about the old Liz Truss thing, that I'd mentioned before. It's basically with Keir Starmer, come back Liz Truss, all is forgiven. I'm serious. She would be better than him. There's no two ways about it. And even if she is goofy and couldn't communicate very well, and would probably be just kicked out after another 49 days. But this guy is, he's worrying because he's unreachable. Yeah, he's worrying. He's definitely worrying. And it's everybody's alarmed on an instinctive level, which I'm hoping that this is a case of it's a cloud with a silver lining. They've actually gone a bit too far, and it could be a blessing in disguise, all those sorts of things. I'd like to think that might come true, because I'm probably going to fall short a bit. But I just started talking to them about that. I said, look, I said, forgive me. I said, I didn't vote for your party. I didn't vote for any parties. I don't do that sort of thing. I said, it's a really filthy habit, almost as bad as smoking. And I said, apart from it, I said, but your guys won't be in charge anyway. They're going to have to take their orders from the bank. And they said, what do you mean? And so we just had a little chat. And I thought, I really do feel, it's not that I'm feeling like becoming a politician, but I've got this urge to just talk to everybody all the time. I can't stop it at the moment, because I think we really are at this sort of little flashpoint in the emotional life of the British. It's about emotion, is this. Something has got to emote. It's not about intellect. It's not even about having all the facts or all the history at our fingertips. People like you and me and many of the listeners here do, okay, or certainly have such a cluster of information that is very surprising to most people. Because they don't know these sorts of little areas of questioning could even occur, let alone that you're asking them and all that kind of stuff. But they know that something's wrong. And so if there's a way, they really do know in a way that I can't ever experience under anybody else. Before, it was just an intellectual criticism. Oh, the government's crap, this, that, and the other, right? This is going on. We've all been hearing that sort of stuff for years. This is not like that. This is like little flashes of fire go off in people's eyes. There's a fury. I can feel it. It's middle. If you get Middle England angry, they'll how would we phrase it in English? They've just got a bit cross. You better watch out if they get a bit cross. Seriously, because they can stop everything functioning. They don't have to fight. They just have to stop consenting to make the thing operate. And this is possibly the way that we look, like a peaceful, to asphyxiate them, not to fight them. You can't fight them. They've got all the weapons. They can't wait to have a fight and all that stuff. But there's more than one way, as Sun Tzu said, to wage war. They're waging war on us. If we can find, I know I'm speaking in sort of metaphorical terms and everything, but I keep doing that because I'm not fully clear about it, Eric. But I do think that this is some kind of an approach that if we can cut them off from us, we are their oxygen supply. They kind of... They feed off of us. We have to cut ourselves off from them so that they get short of breath in some kind of way. So anyway, but I'm encouraged. That's all I'm saying. I'm quietly encouraged. Yeah.
I think that Hirohito said when, and there's been all different translations of this, but this may not be the thorough translation rather. When Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, he said, we've bitten the tail of the tiger. Let's hope the tiger doesn't wake. And I think that Keir Starmer has bitten the tail of the tiger, and the tiger is beginning to wake. I really do believe that, because people have had enough. He's going too far, too quickly, and they know they've got to do it very, very quickly, because what's happened recently, I won't go into it obviously because I'm on YouTube. Got to be careful what I say. I think that was a tester to see how complacent or compliant people are, and they're playing tricks with our brains. They're doing something, but I think that it's like most things. Every dog has its day, and I think you're probably going too far, too soon. Who knows? Maybe.
Yeah, I'm really hoping there's bound to be a day that comes when they do that, and we might be on it. It might be just unfolding right now. There's something physiologically repellent about him as an individual, right? He doesn't communicate with any warmth at all. He wouldn't even know what it is. He's completely had a total charisma and charm bypass. Total bypass. There's none of that. He just comes across as this supercilious authoritarian prick. Excuse my language. I hope that didn't get you kicked off of YouTube, but he does, right? That's his impact. You would never, if you didn't know who he was, you wouldn't want to spend time with him. He's a tiresome dullard. Of that, there's no, and he's just on his operating system, and it's this combined with what he's saying, and of course, what was that thing he said last week? Everybody needs to brace themselves for a very tough October budget. Why? If you put me in charge, it'd be tough for you, Keir, and your pals.
Yeah.
We could make it tough. I show you a tough budget, right? We're going to shut down the Bank of England, and all the people that currently own it, you're off. You're out, lads. It's all over. That's that, That'd be tough, wouldn't it?
Oh, very. And I'll tell you what I've noticed, though, Paul. When you're out and about, if you say the word usury, people sort of look as if they've been touched up. They sort of go, what's that?
Well, they usually do.
Yeah, so usually do. No, but they look at it. Usury as if you said a very rude word. What's usury? Don't know.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Why aren't we taught what it is in schools? The reason why.
Well, it's just up to people like you and me to shoot our mouths off, Eric. I really do think that. And everybody else. I mean, I'm just like, there's a couple of comments in here from DJ Flipped.
Oh,
very
yes.
Interesting handle.
Coming in. Yes. He says here, yes, something tells me Starmer won't last long. So
that's right. Well, I hope you're right. Yeah, I hope you're right.
Stammer is a Fabian. World Economic Forum puppet for the satanic powers that rule the world. New World Order. Welcome to Bolshevik Britain. Yes, because I remember, was it Gorbachev? So was it the EU? Was the Soviet Union that had moved from the east to the west? I remember him saying it before he croaked it. And back to the architecture. DJ Flipper said, I'd nominate the train journey from Watford Junction to Euston for some of the worst dirty buildings. Apologies to anyone who lives there, but living out in the sticks, it's grim to see. Yes, I actually think the train journey from where I live into Liverpool Street Station is pretty grim once you get near London. You get this sort of back-to-back Victorian sort of slummy buildings that have been, just left. It's just grime. Ugh. And A says, people are just figuring out there is something wrong. Laugh out loud. Yes, I think they are. And DJ Flip says, I keep telling myself not to engage with normies. But like you, Paul, I can't help blurting out my truth. That's right.
Get in there, DJ Flipped, and everybody else. You see, also, we could start to just be sneaky about it. You get two of you in a crowd, one kicks off, get a bit of kickback, and then the next one steps in with agreement for what you're saying. It just changes crowds fast. It just does. They do it to us. Oh, how underhand and evil and manipulative am I? But no, seriously, it might not even be that difficult. Every time I brought just even a couple of these things up, and it's only half a dozen times, the response is pretty similar. There's a lot of ground. There's a lot of discontent, and it's running deep, and it's intensifying with each passing day. And, of course, you're supposed to be just absorbed into the negative that they're putting out, which means we never get a chance to actually tell them that there is a positive solution to this that could be enacted pretty quickly if we just get rid of all the people that are trying to kill us. Oh, hang on, that's quite a big challenge. Yes, it is. It is a big challenge.
They are trying to kill us. There's no ifs and buts. When you look at it, more people have been killed by their own governments than all the wars put together. Governments are lethal. They're extremely dangerous. And that's the big problem.
Yeah.
I mean, when you look at the governments, I know this sounds a bit like, what have the Romans ever done for us? But really, what have governments ever done for us? I was listening to Chappie from Poland. And I mentioned this the other night, and that is when the Berlin Wall came down, Poland didn't have a government for a year. And a lot of the Poles, now if you're Polish, you can please come in the chat and agree or disagree, reckon that was a golden year because people had freedom. They didn't have to pay tax and things worked. And that's the people started working things out for themselves. And then suddenly back comes a government and in comes all the rules and regulations that screw things. But entrepreneurs were getting off the ground, employment started to increase, things started to work because people were using their own grey matter and working it out for themselves because they had no government. And I think the civil service is still working, but this is what we need: just a minimal civil service that we that are to our approval, and that's it. Full stop. End of. You don't need anything more than that, I don't think. And also round up all the usury scammers and put them in jail. Handcuffs in court. You've been screwing money out of us. We want it back, please.
Well, I think, if we can get more people aware of it, it's always a big thing because people sort of they fall asleep in the middle of your sentences. I do understand why. This stuff, because there's a lot of emotional baggage around money. As I've mentioned before, the problem with it is that most people's experience of money is a negative one because they've never got enough and there's always been too much bills in their life, which is by design. So it's a challenge, but I still think it's the thing to keep hammering away at. Maybe it's not a hammer. Maybe we dance around it, or it's not even a hammer that we need, something else. On the architecture thing, I've just noticed in one of the comments there, Eric, by the way, that train journey idea, why don't you have a Fockham Hall day out for the most miserable children, and we can film it and put it out and all go off really happy and come back wanting to throw ourselves off of Beachy Head. This is the effect of modern architecture. Look at this group of people. They were very happy only 3 hours ago. Now look at them. That kind of stuff.
I mean, now I'm going to ask Robert. He's on there. Robert, can you put your fingers in your ears? I'm just about to say something rude about Birmingham, okay? The ball ring at Birmingham, I think that needed a bit of TNT to improve it. That is a very depressing place. I think the one-way system in Watford, I think there's cars that's been there about 20 years and haven't found their way off. You sort of go round and round.
Has anybody ever written any songs about the one-way system in Watford? It almost sounds like a good opening line to a song. I was on the one-way system in Watford. Yeah, I love urban songs. They're just great, aren't they? They really get you. What is it about English names? They don't have that sort of broad appeal, whereas in America, all the sort of names as if you're going off on some great adventure all the time, of course. It always was a bit like that, quite romantic. There's a comment here from, Herodotus Get Fooked. Kirkstall Leisure Centre. I'm assuming that means Kirkstall Leisure Centre in Leeds, right? Because I knew Kirkstall. I used to operate around there many, many years ago. Anyway, if it does mean that, Herodotus, I've just looked it up. And yes, it's really, really bad. It's a horrific building. It's awful. Yeah. It's disgusting. It's wretched. It's just a block of bricks. Yes. Yeah. There we go.
What about the South Bank building? That was built in the... When was it? 60s, was it? South Bank. That looks as if they had a pile of concrete delivered and they just cement and that. They didn't know what to do with it. I thought, I know, let's build a building out of it. Got all this concrete, you just don't know what to do with it. It's horrible.
I know. It's absolutely disgusting, all of it. Maybe a show that we could do is blow up this building. A show called Blow, and what you do is you show. You'd have to get something going on YouTube or wherever, so we can show the pictures, and then everybody votes. And then at the end, when the one's picked, you have to have the sound of it being blown up. You'll have to have a big demolition sound of a building blown up. Something like that. I know it's all symbolic and pathetic and childish, but we've got to sort of amuse ourselves along the way, don't we? But
the thing is that if we do get somebody, I think something's going to happen. It's got to happen because we can't carry on like this. It's just absolutely bonkers. Where you've got the one I heard recently was it, and I think it's reasonably true. Doctors have got to ask men if they're pregnant.
Well, I should think so. I used to go around in a sulk, Eric, for years that nobody ever asked me if I was pregnant. I thought, when are they going to ask? Didn't you? And of course, they never even brought it up. There were all these men in England going around, really hangdog expressions. No one dare ask them. And they were just thinking, I wish someone had asked me if I'm pregnant. They're ignoring me. But now they're asking us at last. I feel so much better. It's just fantastic. Yes. Of course, the answer is, of course, no. I'm a man, you stupid clot. But thanks for asking.
Well, I think that would be the time to take a U-turn and walk out the doctors, because if a doctor asks you that question, I think I've seen a few blokes outside the pub that look as if they're heavily pregnant, knocking back the beer. I think that they look very pregnant to me, So.
Yes, when's the barrel due? Yes. That's it. They're going to get delivery of an entire barrel load of beer. But, yeah. So of course they won't have any men walking around nervously smoking because they won't be allowed to smoke anymore.
No.
That's all gone. You see, they cannot have that. Are you allowed to smoke in a hospital while your wife's giving birth? I guess that went out years ago. I've just realised that that was that sort of old cliche, wasn't it? All the men highly nervous, drinking whiskey and smoking like mad. Oh, the wife's having a baby, and they're all completely shaking. What are you doing that for? You don't need to do that. So, anyway, we've lost all that. They've taken smoking out of delivery. Yeah. Oh, what fun it all was
when they removed smoking from pubs. That's.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a non-smoker. I don't smoke, but because I don't smoke doesn't mean to say that other people can't smoke, because we've all got the right to decide. And as long as it doesn't bother me, and people I know that do smoke are very polite. They go outside and have a cigarette. They don't fill the room with smoke. Fine. Everyone to their own. I mean, that's what life is. Hereditors get fooked. The old water fountain across the road. Drink and be grateful. Was that from the building? Don't know.
Yeah, I'm a bit puzzled by that one, I have to say. I don't know what quite. So is that an old water fountain across the road from the the Kirkstall Leisure Centre? The Kirkstall Leisure Centre is a grand night out, isn't it? We should all go and have some leisure there. Let's go and have some leisure.
Well, the building near where I live, what was it now? It was it's a leisure hall. It was built. It was voted the most boring. There's postcards around where I live, and it's actually on the postcards. It was voted one of the most boring postcards ever. And do you remember Andrew Sachs, who was the Manuel? Yeah, he collected boring. He collected boring postcards, and he picked that one out on a show once. He said, "This is Hoddesdon." He said, "Yeah, it's pretty boring, isn't it?" Now, Robert Dorr said, "If governments don't start wars, they most certainly administer them." Yes, very true. The Deagle report, Angela Dempsey says, 7% of the population in England will die depopulation. Yes. Well, I think depopulation, what's happening is we're not having enough children. That's the real thing.
Well, I'm pregnant. What do you mean? We're all pregnant, are we? What do you mean we're not having enough children? People won't even ask me if I'm pregnant or not. I'm having loads, Eric. You don't know how many children I'm having. I keep it quiet. There is that. Look, I think the thing about children, right, and the birth rates is not. I won't worry about that too much. I mean, maybe there'll come a point where you absolutely have to worry about it if there's only 8 of us left, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at things with nations in the past that realised there was a problem with that, there are policies that can completely reverse it almost overnight, right?
Yes.
But to put them in place, you've first got to get the bankers out of the way. In fact, to put anything right, you've got to get the bank in its current form out of the way. Yeah. So the Japanese are banging on out there about, we've got this aging population. We need to allow lots of people in to look after the aging population. What are you talking about? It's complete gibberish. It's just a line of logic that's nonsense and doesn't even work. It's silly. You just go, no, restructure your economy to basically set things up. One of the things about moving people around all over the place is that many of us now no longer live nearby our parents. It's one of my great sort of regrets in life. Is it a regret? It's something I feel bad about. It's about one of the few things I do. But then I wind it back to when I was in my early 20s up in Leeds, near the Kirkstall Leisure Centre, right? Probably must have been past it once or twice, although it wasn't as hideous as it looks now, I don't think. And I needed to go off somewhere, so I went to London. But I did have this very strong sense that I needed to go somewhere else to expand what little tiny horizons I may have had at the time. So you do that. But there was definitely an effort to move people all over the place. And of course, the thing that used to happen in the past is that, you'd have grandma and dad and grand all near one another. And that became, of course, mocked in the media. And it's a bad thing, but it's not. It's a wonderful thing. And when you think about it, you can't buy that with money, you see. You can't buy longevity of relationships and longevity of relationships down through the family tree. You can't buy that. You can't. I'm going to go out and buy some grandparents and all this kind of stuff and recreate. You can't do that. You get one chance at it, and that's why sticking at it really is very valuable. The more seasoned it becomes, it's just like fine wine, the better it gets. I know some people have hellish relationships in families. I'm not an idiot. But overall, that thing works. and people learn
I agree.
often very good and harsh lessons, really, from intra-family disputes. I know they can be pretty tough, but even so, that's the hand you got dealt. You need to play it. And yeah, there was definitely an attempt to smash all that up, wasn't there?
Oh, there definitely was. I mean, when I was young, my grandparents lived. Unfortunately, my father's grandparents had died. They died before I was born. But my mother's grandparents, they lived about 3/4 of an hour, about half an hour, 3/4 of an hour, quarters of an hour walk away. Everybody lived a short distance away. My 3 uncles, who were comedians, they would drop in occasionally because in those days, very few people had a telephone, and if you did, you had a party line. Do you remember the party lines? Whereas, because there was a short phone lines, and we had a party line around the corner, and they had their phone next to the beds, you see, and every time they made the bed, they knocked the phone off the hook. And I won't go into explicit details, but in a bedroom, so occasionally you pick up the phone and you hear these very strange noises. I think you can imagine what I'm going to, what these strange noises are. And,
I've no idea.
Whistle through the phone, and I think they're too busy to notice that. So I was sent round being a nice little boy. Hey mate, not going to do. Hey mate, can you put your phone back on the hook, please? But I think that was more interested in something else. But we won't go into that either. So, but by the way, talking about birth, I've kept this between you and I, Paul. I was heavily pregnant this morning, and I went into the birthing room. But luckily, I flushed it afterwards. So there we are. So all's well that ends well. But so I actually terminated my pregnancy this morning.
Did you?
Yes.
So they ask if men are pregnant. So that's good. So they ask if men are pregnant. They don't say, "Are you up the duff?" They don't use colloquial, good, cheery language. Yeah, and I wonder where the duff was. Why is it called the duff? I don't know. Shout out to anybody in the chat who's got etymological spare time on their hands. Let's go and find the root of that. What does it mean, being up the duff? Where was it?
Up the duff,
I have no idea. Yeah. Are you up the... Yeah.
I'm wondering whether to sort of... I won't go into specific details. Go down to the doctors and collect what has my birth and say, excuse me, is this a stillbirth or is this the afterbirth? Bloody hell.
Now, I've got to be going, Eric. I can't hang around with conversation like this. This is shocking. I've got a reputation. I've got a family, you know, but I'm amazed. There are people in this town think I'm somebody. No, this is terrible.
I think we got to go. What I mean, I think we've got to do counter subversion. We've got to go with the flow and say, yes, I have been pregnant. Agree with them. Just go with it. You know, I just have some fun along the way, because it is funny when you look at them. I mean, when you see these woke characters, I mean, did you see that army recruiting campaign? They showed you one for the Russian army and one for the American army. The Russian army, it's these fellas stripped to the waist, bloody great blokes throwing boulders and logs to each other, and the commandos join the Russian army. And then they come over to America. Well, it's been marvelous since I changed my sexuality from female to male. I've now, or male to female. The forces have been very supportive of me. I mean, how the bloody hell in a war could you rely on them? I mean, mind you,
but it's just really all part of the demoralization process, isn't it? If we think, I have no idea, I can't even be bothered to research it. The numbers of people who have had that done is absolutely minute. The acres of newspaper print they've got is absolutely colossal and wholly disproportionate. They're unwell. They need help. We don't need to read about it. That's it. There's no policies to be made. It's all completely silly. But of course, it's being used as a demoralization thing, a social engineering thing. If you're against this, you're an evil person. You know, we've got to be kind to everybody. And woke is basically just another word for communism, and that's really it.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, DJ Flips has said, I agree with Chris. A civil servant should manage services without central government being involved. No, I don't believe in central government. But does Chris or Paul have any ideas of how things like roads, sewers, and drinking water and refuse? Yes, I have. Yes, it would work. I think it would work a treat as well. because people see what's happening. You're leaving part of your life to a complete stranger who hasn't got the foggiest idea what they're doing. I mean, when you look, I mean, for example, we've got councillors around where we live. Absolute waste of space. One of them claimed 28.
You're a bit harsh.
Well, £28,000 a year. This fellow did inexpensive. £28,000, and he was deputy police commissioner for 28,000 quid. Yeah, nice money. Nice if you can get it. But what do they do? What does a local council actually do? Have you ever worked out what they do? I don't know what they do because.
Well, I'll tell you, when I was with these guys, I'll tell you, here, I don't know much, but I found out something on Saturday when I spoke to this clutch of enraged men from the Reform Party, or at least it wasn't, although it had a Reform Party thing there, it was just a table, and they were just talking, and I thought, one of the things I meant to ask them, maybe, no, I'm going to remember what my point is here, because I'm going to go distracted. How do you get a table and stand in the street and do stuff? Because I'd just get a table, and I just want to talk to people, but, and I have forgotten. I knew as I went into that thing, I'd forgotten what we were going to talk about. So I've completely lost my point.
Hang on.
What were we talking about? I knew it was going to happen. I started on it. The Reform Party, talking to people. What? No, I'm gone.
Hang on. I know. Well, I was talking about what DJ Flitz said.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul, have any ideas how things like roads, sewers, drinking water...
Yes, that's it. Yes, right. So the local council here, they told me what they'd done. He said, you know that we got a Labour council in. I said, well, I do now. I don't pay any attention to this stuff, right? It's sordid, isn't it?
Yeah.
Although maybe you've got to go in there. I'm just beginning to have this thought. I think maybe I need to go in and, have a punch up with someone or something verbally. I don't know. It might be interesting to see how hard I get kicked and how snotty they all are. I'm sure it's considerable. He said, they voted themselves in. Do you know what the first thing was that they did? I said, no, what was the first thing that they did? He said, they awarded themselves a pay rise. I said, well, I said, they probably deserved it, didn't they? Because, they all have, because they work so hard. Mm-hmm. I mean, even though I don't know who they are or what work they do, I'm sure it's jolly tricky job, and that they're worth every £1,000 or whatever that they've got. So these things just irk people all the time, but then you kind of feel that they're designed to. But yeah, so that's what they've done round here. I think you could. I've talked about, I was just looking for it right now, of course, as usual. I can't find these documents when I want them. I've mentioned William Cobbett. I've mentioned him on our show, haven't I, a few times. Yeah. Cobbett is really interesting from so many points of view. And he wrote a thing on the bank and on gold and on all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And there's some lovely comments about it. And he basically talks about shutting down the government completely and the civil service, though, and the army. He thinks the army should be shut down. He said they're all placemen. I was just trying to find, if I can find it, I'll look for it now while we're talking. I'll come back to it because it's brilliant stuff. And he spent time in jail for opposing the Bank of England. And this book is about its accounts, how it lies to people, why there's always a shortage of money that it has to create more money for. None of these topics, you see, are ever spoken about. And we touch on them here and repeat them. And yet it requires a concerted, permanent sort of communications organizations who just keep banging it out and banging it out and banging it out in some way. But as I said, the force that you're up against is greed. And so the other side are all paid off. They go, well, if you actually stand over here on the side of the bank, you'll always have enough money to pay for your mortgage and everything's going to be lovely for you. And so that's what happens. It harnesses all that greed that's in those people, keeps them close to the trough. And of course, they just go almost unconscious on it. They think, oh, this is great, So when Starmer's going to give his budget in October, it's really just, I mean, I don't know whether he knows or not. I'm going to assume, I don't want to assume either way. It wouldn't really matter. But he's just going to come up with a budget which is about tweaking the system as they see it. The fact that they're not seeing it right never comes up. They're going to say, well, we adjust the economic system like this, to which people like you and I would say, no, you don't. No. You don't do any of that. Everything that you're going to do won't make any difference, except that in 6 months' time, we're going to have an even worse budget because you're going to be doing the same things. No. What we have to do is we have to sort out the fuel that the system runs on, this thing that's producing the fuel, the currency. Sort that out, and then we can see what we can do. But, of course, you and I know that they're never going to go there. In communication, they're never, ever going to go there, ever.
Look at the amount of money, the amount of taxation is phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. And it's complicated deliberately so that if you accidentally make a mistake or anything like that with your tax forms or anything like that, they're on you like a ton of bricks. And it is all aggression. It's threats to this, threats to that. And that's how the mafia work. If you don't pay us, we'll come round and send the boys round. And that's the same as the government. If you don't pay them, they send the boys round. What's the difference? There's no difference between the mafia and the government. Local councils. What's the difference between them? They just threat all the time. I think also they're going to change the council tax around, aren't they? So you're going to be paying more council tax. Well,
we're not going to be doing any of this. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be readjusting our status. We're going to restore the law, and we are going to, in biblical terms, come out of her, this hellish system, this beast that we cannot fight. You can't fight that system, but you can come out of it. And so at least that's what I'm intending to do. When I bumped into this friend, by the way, on Friday, he reminded me of an organization in Ireland that, according to him, and I've got other reports, are doing spectacular things for individuals who redefine their status under the law.
I've heard about that.
Yeah, we've got to get into this because, well, I do. I'm actually compelled at the moment, so I'm gathering lots of other information. I'm going to jump into this because I still find when a lot of people talk about this stuff, I get completely befuddled. I get lost in my head. I go, am I really that thick? And I'm going, you can't be that thick, but I am. Or it's not being communicated right. So what's needed is this crystal clear communication that the man in the pub can understand. And even, when they're unpicking these systems with the definition of words, you only have 3 or 4 in your head at once, and it gets confusing really very, very quickly. You lose your bearings mentally about what's going on. So it needs to really, I think, be sort of sorted out in a different way,
I agree.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, these people these lawyers and these people that are judges and that, they are brilliant wordsmiths, and they'll tie people up in knots. That's what they do all day. And
it's a hidden language as well, Eric. It's a hidden language. You've got birth with an I, you've got birth with an E, you've got things like you talked about afterbirth, right? Okay. Well, that's actually worth its weight in gold, literally. Yeah. And then they trade all this sort of archaic occultic stuff that they use to create some kind of human balance sheet. Anyway, I found that little thing by Cobbett. I'm not going to read it. I just think it's worth reading a couple of bits. It's called Cobbett's Paper Against Gold, being a series of letters. Number 1, introduction. And you'll like this. And it's written, when did he write it? About 1812. Okay, so it's around about that period. He says that the time is now come when every man in this kingdom ought to make himself, if possible, well acquainted with all matters belonging to the paper money system. It is that system which has mainly contributed towards our present miseries. And, indeed, without that system, those miseries never could have existed in anything approaching towards their present degree. In all countries where a paper money, that is to say, a paper which could not at any moment be converted into gold and silver, has ever existed, in all countries where this has been the case, the consequence, first or last, has always been great and general misery. And in most such cases, such misery has been productive of that confusion and bloodshed which I most anxiously hope will be prevented, in this instance, by timely measures of a just and conciliatory character, and by the good sense, patience, and fortitude of the people. I love the way they wrote back then, but that's, you see, he was addressing this 200 years ago. And he's not the only one to have done it, but it's really, really monstrously key. And you were talking about taxation. He mentions that. This is just in the early bit of the introduction. He says here, we ought next to inquire whether it be possible to lessen the debt by that scheme which has been called the sinking fund. Then we ought to enter into all the facts of that curious event called the bank restriction, which was the stoppage of cash payments at the bank in violation of the bank charter and of the laws of debtor and creditor. And he goes on, and he went to prison, right? He went to prison for some time. And he mentions, this is almost in the next thing, he went to prison over his opposition to the bank and spent quite a bit of time in there. What does he write here? He says, the prosecution and sentence took place in the reign, this is referring to himself, of King George III. And that Him, yeah. So and that he having become insane during my imprisonment, he had porphyria, right? You know, they made a film about it.
Yeah.
The £1,000 was paid to his son, the Prince. £1,000, but it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
The Prince Regent, in his behalf, that during my imprisonment I wrote and published 364 essays. This is Cobbett, and letters upon political subjects. That at the same time I was visited by persons from 107 cities and towns, many of them as a sort of deputies from societies or clubs. That at the expiration of my imprisonment on the 9th of July, 1812, there you go, a great dinner was given in London for the purpose of receiving me, at which dinner upwards of 600 persons were present. This is how famous he was, right, and respected. Yeah. At which Sir Francis Burdett presided. It's just fantastic stuff. It's absolutely. I want to go and see William amazing Englishman, one of the greatest Englishmen ever, and hardly anybody knows about him. Yeah, William Cobbett.
Yeah, William Cobbett. It sounds like a very common thing that we should know about. Cobbett. It sounds a very common name, doesn't it? Cobbett. You know, William Cobbett. I'm going to look up more of that. That sounds interesting, because there was a chap that actually, it might have been William Cobbett, that went round and saw how taxation was going against people's lives around the country, and that was around about that time. He went on horseback around the country, and he was seeing that people had to pay a tax on the ale that they were brewing. You know, when they went and on
I thought you said owl at first. I thought you said owl.
Owl.
Got owl tax.
And there was tea tax, wasn't there? They had to pay because, you know, the Boston Tea Party, that was over 3%, just 3%. That's all. And we're taxed what?
Yeah, that was and then there was the window tax, which is the big one, wasn't it? About windows.
Yeah,
and did you know there was also a tax on steps?
I didn't know that. I know there was a hearth tax as well on your hearth.
Yeah, and that tax on steps is where we get the phrase "stepping up in the world."
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. A tax on steps.
They've taxed anything that they could. Anything where it looks as though the plebs are getting a little bit of wealth, tax it.
Yeah. Unbelievable. It's
not really.
Well,
it's completely believable.
I'm old enough to remember when all cars paid the same tax, and that was £65 a year.
How old are you? 800.
Well, Queen Victoria, when I was at school, Queen Victoria.
What'd she say to you? I know.
She's not amused. Well, when I told her my fart gag, she just was not amused. She didn't like that. You know?
She didn't like fart gags. Oh, Queen Victoria. No, she wasn't into them too much. Not having had to live with Albert all those years. It was very, very distasteful to her. Yeah, very bad.
I don't know if you've ever seen this film, The Petamine. And
the what?
The Petamine. Have you ever heard of the Petamine? And
no.
I would look it up on YouTube when you after the show. The Petamine, and Leonard Rossiter acted the part. And it's one of the greatest parts he's ever acted. I won't say any more than that. You'll say, that's Eric to a T. It's one of my favourite films. I'll send you a link. I won't say any more than that.
Okay. Okay. I'm slightly worried, but looking forward to it, I think.
There's a scene where I think it was Prince of Wales was very impressed with the Petamine. And he bought a record of him, and he see Queen Victoria say, "I'm not amused."
I'm not amused.
That actually did exist. He died in 1945. The Petamine, yes, and his son wrote a book which was out on Penguin published it. Anyway, back to chat. We're saying here, DJ Flip said, emergency services and all the rest could be managers. Would it be private companies or cooperatives? Well, what's wrong with cooperatives? I mean, when you think about it, what exactly does the council do for you? All they do, they empty my litter. That's it, really. They don't sweep the roads. They empty my litter. Full stop. End of. Well, I can get someone to empty my bins for I think about £100 a month. Less than that. I think about £20 a month. So.
Well, it's not just that. You could actually, it would take a little bit of time, but you could, like, I live in a cul-de-sac, right? And it may be that what we all do is we go, look, you all take your thing 30 yards down the thing every once a week on this day. And the fact that we would all be doing something around about the same time, you'd bump into your neighbours and talk to them. You know those connective points that they've kind of squished out of the, like the pub. That's why they're doing the thing. It's connected. That's why I'm always talking to everybody in soup. Hello. Just pointlessly cheery, almost tiresomely cheery. I don't often feel cheery, but that's the little act I put on, you know. And because it used to be like that, I remember growing up, public life was just louder. It was better. It was very loud. Oh. You know, I remember going to markets, you probably did with your mum or whatever when I was a young lad, and the sheer volume and force of energy, it's just brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. How much? I'm not bloody paying that. I used to hear that all the time. You can stick that up where bloody, you know, all this kind of stuff. It's wonderful. It's just human beings just haggling. We don't haggle now. They just go, prices on it. Let's just pay it. It's boring. It's so dull.
The joke merchants that used to pick stuff up and say, hey, I'll get this, you know, and come out with gags and make people laugh as they're trying to sell stuff. There's loads of that down Walthamstow Market. But that's
brilliant.
But apparently now we got here, you know, that fountain Hereditors was talking about. Deb said, I think it's the fountain. I pass that a few times a week. I'll help you cut it up. So there we go.
Yeah.
And what we was talking about the American and the Russian army. She said mascara at 30 paces as DJ flipped. And Deb said local councils sit behind desks planning shite road systems and useless cycle paths. Oh, you've hit a raw nerve there. Yeah, the council, at great expense, they've actually had a public inquiry, which is not a public inquiry because it's all, it's a foregone conclusion. They're going to actually, they had this great thing in the 1990s of pedestrianising everywhere. Do you remember that? Closing off roads and pedestrianising. They're now depedestrianising and putting roads back again. and putting 20-mile speed limits down. We're going to have 20-mile speed limits around here. So, you know.
But there's, I think the road thing and all this kind of stuff, it's just a knock-on effect from the fact that the fundamentals of structuring economic life are out the window. Everything, you know, they're still droning on about growth, aren't they? Have you noticed? It's economic. It's economic. We've had great growth. What are you talking about? You know, sometimes growth, you don't want great. What is it, a boil on your neck? I mean, I don't want that. Oh, no, it's not that. It doesn't mean anything. It's meaningless because it's just you are to assume, therefore, that because we've had growth, everything's going to get better. No, it doesn't. You just go around in a deluded mental state that you think it's better. I never know. When I was a kid in the 70s growing up, I never noticed whether we had money or not. First of all, I didn't have much. When we were supposedly really wealthy, I don't remember seeing more, nor do I remember feeling really miserable because I was told I didn't have as much stuff. It's nonsense. We actually really don't need much to function well. Somebody sent me something the other day. It was a little clip from Twitter. It was really nice, I thought, if I can remember it. It went something like, okay, it's 500 years ago. You're in England, and you've just had your supper, and you're about to light a fire outside in the field, and you know that your neighbours are coming across the field to bring food and to sit with you, and you're going to sit around the fire and play games and tell tales all night. And the tagline was, and this is as good as it ever gets. And I'm going, that's all I ever needed it to get. I don't need it to get any better than that. That's it. Nice. Thank you. Give me that. I'll be happy. Because in the telling of tales, Eric, like we're doing now, we've got limitless possibilities. Unlimited. Right. Absolutely. We can just go anywhere that we like, and we do. And isn't that where we're really bound in? It's where life feels like you're right, the juice of the whole thing. It's just, I know people argue and stuff, but it's just the most fantastic thing. You want your Uncle Tommy to turn up and say, did I ever tell you that story about so-and-so? No. Please tell us. Okay. I just love it. It's the best.
That's right. When my uncles pop round, there are three different types of comedians. One was a joke merchant. The other one was a towel. He used to tell tales about what happened to him. And the third one was a very technical type of comedian. And you would be in pain with laughter. literally pain with laughter because you was laughing your head off so much. It was one round of laughter all the time. Those skills have gone now. People don't seem to be able to do that. But and they'd always leave the room with people laughing. But
Yeah.
that's the thing. Oh, by the way, Deb, you know that you can come on the show if you want to now. So the invite's there because you're actually what they call it, some bloody name. But anyway, you've still got the details. You can come on if you want. Okay, so the invitation's there. You'll be more than welcome. Okay, so I'll put that out because what is it? Oh, some name or something. But she's got the access to come on. So if you want to come on, Deb, you can.
Yeah.
Now getting a table. You said about you're going to want to put a table in the market.
Yeah.
Well, I know where I live, you have to pay 30 quid, I think it is, for a table. And I'm not
Well, I
sure.
wouldn't mind. That'd be okay. These guys were just on the sidewalk here. It's quite wide. It's not a big sort of little street. It's only a couple of 100 yards long on each side. But the pavement's really wide because I think every first Saturday in every month now, they've started having a little sort of mini market on this very broad pavement. It's great. It's really good. Anyway, they just got a little double I don't mind paying for it. It's not paying for it and then having all the kerfuffle. Have you seen, there's that guy, what's it called? Louder with Crowther or Crowder in the States. I'm not a fan, but he has this great thing where he'll sit down in front of a university and he'll put some sort of provocative sort of comment in front of it, like there are only two genders, there are only two sexes, there's only males and females, prove me wrong. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
It's wonderful.
That's what we need more of. But DJ Flip said, what about instead of the current road tax system, for example, you pay towards road maintenance based on the amount of miles you drive and whether or not you drive a heavy vehicle. Well, again, it's back to taxation, isn't it? I'm sure we could work things out without taxation because look what happened in Argentina when they went bankrupt in 1990. People, what they did, they went to the local council with a pair of bolts, opened the council gates, and then they started repairing the roads outside their houses. And the roads were smoother, better than they've ever been. And then people started, and the police turned a blind eye to it. And they reckon I worked with an Argentinian bloke that was there at the time. And he said the best educated children were at that time because people paid to have form their own schools and paid to have their own teachers come along. And of course, if a teacher starts talking to a kid about there's 25 different genders, they get booted out on their arse, and that's it. They get another teacher in to teach. They wouldn't tolerate that. So I actually think that, again, it's anarchy, but it would work. I'm sure it would work. And
I don't think it would necessarily be anarchy, Eric. I know why you say that.
Anarchy individualism. That's really what it is. It's individualism, right? Anarchy. If you look up in an old dictionary, not a modern one, it's not. Doesn't mean everything going to berserk and people running amok. No, it wouldn't. There would be better law and order because people would have self-discipline, not have it imposed.
Well, they have to. This is the only way through. It seems to me is to restore the law, the things that actually do bind us together, without which you can't actually build a civilized space. You can't do it. It's not possible. You could say we don't really live in one now, and I don't think we do, because we've got the bullies on the block called the government who work for even bigger bullies that are bullying them. It's just a big line of bullying because somebody wants something that nature says you don't really need that, but they're adamant that they do. We need to be in control of the whole world or something, some bizarre thing that nobody could be anyway. I mean, it's just sort of, it's very childish. But there you go. These things, they are forces that really do play a very heavy role in our lives. Yeah,
we've got Edward Bernays to thank for that, because Edward Bernays he changed the whole way of selling, because in the 1920s and 30s, people bought cars and washing machine or whatever, or very primitive washing machines, because they were quality and they were built to last forever. And then Edward Bernays brought in, he actually wrote a book called Propaganda. And then they changed the name when propaganda started to fall out of favor to public relations. And I don't know if you've heard of Edward Bernays or not, but
yes, yeah, I have. Yeah,
and he made it the planned obsolescence. So a car was built where it would be, say, a Model T Ford was built and would last for years, they'd build cars that would only last 5 or 10 years and then fall to bits. They built them to rust. They built them to the engines wouldn't last and things like that.
Yep.
And this is what gets me now. They're talking about all eco and things like that. No, they're not eco, because what's happening where I live, for example, what I said earlier, when I first moved here, you could buy food locally and it was grown locally. There was pig farms all around, and then they built a housing estate next to a pig farm. And someone said, "Well, what about the smell?" And I said, "Well, don't worry, the pigs will get used to it. You know, that's the thing." But the thing is it's true. That's really funny about it.
No, I knew where you were going, but I still enjoyed it anyway. It was nice. It was good.
But the thing is, most of the stuff came locally. And then the EU made it that, I mean, I'm sorry if there's any vegetarians listening in, but I think Frederick Forsyth, I mean, he's got, or he did have, I don't know if he's still around. He had I think he was a sheep farmer just up the road to where I live. And he was saying that when the EU came along, you had to take the animals miles to the slaughterhouse, whereas before that, the slaughterhouse was only a couple of miles up the road. So it caused the animals much more stress, unnecessary stress, all because of regulations of it's all the centralization. You know, that's what communism is. But Andrew Dempsey says, Windows on the World, Mark Windows, yeah, I know Mark, knows all about the system. He knows how to deal with these gangsters. That's right. And Deb has said, I've always said road tax should be taken from fuel payments. Yes. That way people can't drive without paying. Well, if it goes towards, but it should go 100% towards the upkeep of the road. And anything that's left over goes back to the reduce the tax. That's another way they could do it. But again, when you get governments meddling, I don't really like that much. I don't like governments meddling. The song Taxman by the Beatles, great lyrics about taxation, that the group was paying 95% tax. That's right. When asked where their money goes, they replied with a smile, Her Majesty. That's right. Michael Caine had to leave this country because he said, what was it? 90 pence in every pound he earned went to the government. Can that be right?
Mm-hmm.
And Robert says, anarchy would be no bad thing as it means without rulers. That's correct. Thanks, Robert. And the experiences of the Polish and Belgian peoples prove this. Yes, that's right. And Deb says, heading off now. Great show. Love to all. Hope to see you soon. I'll be speaking
See you,
to
Deborah.
Bye. And the thing is, no, because she was a regular on the show. She used to actually, it used to be us two together. I've interviewed Mark, top bloke. Yes, that's Mark Windows. Yeah, well, if you look at my early shows, we used to double up. We used to do shows together, Mark and I. So,
right.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Do you know Mark Windows?
I did. Well, I know of him, and I had a very brief sort of Skype exchange with him a few months ago, but I've just been too busy. I meant to try and get him back to try and include his show on Radio Soapbox on the schedule there, but I've just not had a chance to do anything much. Hopefully, as the autumn rolls around, I might get some time back. It's just been a very funny sort of summer for me. It really has. I've lost.
It must be, yes. But I mean, do you know whether he's back in Britain or not? Because I think he went over to Bulgaria or somewhere, didn't he? He was staying over there.
I don't know. Oh, really? Okay. I don't know, actually. No, I don't know. I'm not sort of up to speed on all that kind of stuff.
But also, I've been looking at RuTube. No, not RudeTube, RuTube, which is Russian version of YouTube.
Right.
Apparently, there's no censorship on there. So you can say what you want. And I'm wondering whether, the only trouble, it's all in Russian, but there are some English, Dr. Buke or something, he's on there, and there's quite a few people from the West going on to it. So who would ever thought during the Cold War that you'd have to go onto a Russian website for freedom of speech? I mean, you just get bonkers, isn't it? Totally bonkers.
Yeah.
It really is. But I mean, where you live, what's happening? I mean, is the council going against the people, obviously allowing these hideous buildings to be built? Is there any opposition at all? I mean, I'm pleased to hear that there's a stall with that political group there, but is there anything else going on there at all?
I wouldn't know really, Eric. I generally don't stick my nose out into it. I think the idea, although the idea of getting together locally is really good, being able to combat things like building and planning permission at this stage is probably a bridge too far, because the force behind that is the backhander market, as far as I'm concerned, right?
It is.
And apart from which, the whole of the thinking of the great mass of people is along the lines that we can't afford things. They don't realize that we can afford anything we like. They've just been, that you can't have good stuff, that the country hasn't got enough money. Yes, it has. It's got as much money as it needs.
It's got World War II, isn't it?
It's got enough money to do whatever it likes. Whenever it suits those that want to do things, there's always plenty of money for that. And when it's something that's actually about raising the bar in terms of the quality of life in all sorts of ways, it can't be done. But because people don't know that, they end up basically, reinforcing the problem that they're facing. So, all part of the sort of psychological programming that's the main hurdle, so that people go, hey, we really could have it how we wanted it. Well, yeah, we could. Then you'd have to be really clear about what you wanted, because you've got to think it through, right? But there's no we could, we could have things fantastically well.
Well, my father, I remember him saying, he said during the war, he was posted to Malta, and he was on guard because all the services were combined in Malta. People don't realise that Army, Navy, and Air Force were all combined, and he used to guard the hurricanes. This was a little bit later on. I think it's soon after the siege, and he said each one of those hurricanes, I think it was 10,000. They cost £10,000 each. That's a lot of money. And he said, a couple of them would be shot down, so it's £20,000, £30,000. And he said he couldn't understand it. The government couldn't afford to help people before the war, when there was a lot of starvation, there's a lot of poverty. For example, my father could have gone to university, but his father couldn't afford it, and threatened my dad. Said, look, fail the test, please, because I can't afford to send you to university. So he deliberately failed the test, and he said, how comes the government couldn't afford things before, but they could afford to throw such huge amount of money away during the war? It's just ridiculous. But Roberts come in and said, part of the reason our taxes are so high is that we, the people, foot the bill for everything from waterways to public works, utilities, etc. Council tax, road tax at all is double dipping. Yes. Yeah. Yes.
It is.
It's spot on. It is double dipping, because you know that your council tax goes to the government, and then the government gives back to the local council what it thinks it needs, and that's it.
I know, and it's the same with all the other taxes. They shuffle them around. Fuel tax goes to be spent on something else, and this, that, and the other. And it's an intentionally overly complicated mess, and no one's clear about it. And when you ask for an answer, you never get anything crisp and clear and understandable with a jolly sort of communicator. No, you get these dreary 5,000-page documents intentionally that no one's going to read, and they cost more money, which you have to be taxed for, to produce documents that you're not going to read, telling you things in a way that you can't be bothered to read. So it's like a cultural, it's a disease. These are symptoms of a system that's unwell, because it's not focusing on wealth. It's focusing on keeping wealth away from you whilst pretending to you that you're going to get some. And like we said earlier, people don't need much. One of the things they need, though, is to be left alone by an interfering pestilential government. And that's, leave us alone. No, we're not going to do that. Why? Because we're used to everything else, and we're parasites. Oh, right. Okay, I understand. That's that's the size of it.
There was a public inquiry because they're going to build this so many acre estate around where I live, full of these rabbit hatch, terrible houses. And I went to the council, had a sort of an open day where you could go and see these mock-ups of what it's going to look like. And anyway, I went in there and I was looking around and looking at the the things, and there's all these sort of people swanning around, with their name badges on them and all sort of hello and all this. So I was looking there, and I had quite a few technical questions to ask. So the woman said, "Oh, here's the architect." He wasn't an architect; he was a PR bloke. I could tell that within about 30 seconds of talking to him. He didn't have a bloody clue. And I said, "Well, so what's the ratio of the garages and housing and things like this? And why is that drive below the 3 meter limit? Why is it only 2.5 meters? Why are you asking these questions?" I said, "Well, because I'm in the profession." "Oh, excuse me." Goodbye. Off he went. And the answers I got, all these people were professional bullshitters. They're a PR firm, and this bloke didn't work for an architect. He wasn't an architect. He was a public relations, whatever you call it, officer or whatever. So they was giving me bullshit. That's all it was. And you're finding this all the time. It's all sold on bullshit. It's all smiles, hello, all this. And they spend a lot of money on this bullshit. But Robert's come back again, and he said, where are we? He says, "Paul, the system is not broken. It's work just fine for those whom have designed it." Oh, beauty. Yeah. Yes, that's true.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's designed that way. It's all intentional and designed a particular way, whilst pretending to us that if we just work a bit harder, it'll all turn out great. Honest. Just trust us. We're the government that you need. And it's desperately crazy stuff, but we're basically paying for our own ruin, whilst being promised that we're paying to actually improve things. But that's really the way it goes. I mean, if you look at the technology that's available, you look at the ability to really manage the land well. If all of the encumbrances that have been put there intentionally were removed, then there's no reason within 5 to 10 years that you couldn't produce the healthiest food anywhere in the world could be produced out of any nation that takes a certain approach. We could be that nation. We could be if we got rid of these. The reason why so many people are ill is that the food system's rotted. It's not the farmers' fault. They've had a gun put to their head as well. I don't blame them. I'm not blaming the farmers. The farmers have been basically economically squeezed, as they say. Well, this is a nonsense. You can't. I know you can go out and in the marketplace buy potatoes, but someone's got to grow really good potatoes and really good tomatoes. And there's a way of doing that, and it's known, and we need to get back to the way. And they say, well, it doesn't yield as much per acre. To hell with that. We don't need it to yield as much. We need it to do it naturally, effortlessly, so that the ground basically does this every year forever, which is amazing when you think about it. You go, what forever? Yeah, food just keeps coming out of the ground if you treat it right forever. Wow, right. That's good. Spot on. That's really good. It is.
They used to design it where you had a village or town, and then you had farms supporting that village or town, so you didn't really have to go very far. So you wanted some bacon or something, you went to the butchers, you got it from the local farm. If you wanted, and it was similar, not like so much like that around where I live, but you could go to local nurseries to buy food. And hang on, Hereditous Get Fucked has just said, "Can we all stay at Fockham Hall?" Well, be a bit crowded, but you can actually form your own Fockham Hall, you see, wherever you are. So it doesn't really matter.
We need a Fockham Hall. Don't we need a Fockham Hall farmers market? That's what we need, Eric. And Fockham Hall day out on. Go and see all the miserable buildings of England. I'd come for that one. Yeah. We could all just,
Yeah, it's get thoroughly depressed. Sort of.
Yeah, thoroughly depressed. Happy? Yeah. Come on a trip with us. We'll knock that out of you in 10 minutes. Come and look at hideous buildings like this. So.
What about the Southend-on-Sea? Now, Southend-on-Sea. It's a sort of place, and I'm going to upset people now, that part of Southend leaves with you when you leave the place. And it's usually on the sole of your shoe, you see. And they built the VAT building right on the side of the coast. Nice view for the civil servants who are sitting at the window, looking out at Southend. But and it was one of these stacker block buildings, 60s. I mean, it just stuck out like a sore thumb. And you look at these beautiful little places like Torquay and that. They've got their share of shitty buildings. Terrible. 60s buildings. What was
Yep.
it about the 60s and that generation? Was there something in their brain that kicked in? I just don't know what
Well,
it
I
was.
don't. I really don't look at it as a generational thing ever. Really, in terms of, I don't think generations are kind of responsible for the sort of junk or absence of junk that they grow up with. I mean, obviously they are to some degree, but it's to do with these higher pressures and forces. It's to whoever allows or makes the decisions at the top. Why is it that so many good buildings in England went up in the 19th century? Because the sort of men that were in charge of things, those that had not been fully corrupted by masonry, although I'm assuming there were many masons involved with this sort of nonsense, it had not sunk to the sort of sewage pit level that it is now. They actually were interested in projecting, civic power and this, that, and the other. So every sort of major city had a town hall. The one in Leeds, that's still there to this day, is a fantastic bit of building work, no matter what you want to say. Had a great library in it. I don't mind that stuff. Get on with it then, if that's what you want to do. At least it's worth looking at. And there are all these mills and all this kind of other stuff that was built. And, the benefactors, Cadbury's up in Yorkshire, they started building homes, for their workers because they had places. So many benevolent things happened. Good things were happening. And you mentioned the co-op earlier as well, Eric. The co-op is just a fantastic idea. It's a brilliant idea. I just love the whole idea of it. It's great. I mean, the idea is that you cooperate to get good quality stuff amongst yourselves and satisfy your needs for food and clothing and what else. Great.
I had Nathan Allen.
Let's do that.
But I had Nathan Allenby on the show the other week, and he said that co-ops work. He's been to India, and he said there was over there, there's a lot of Indian women that are single. When I say single, their husbands have got killed or they died. A lot of widows, and he said these women had nothing. They don't work. You starve to death. There's no welfare, anything like that in India. And he said what they did, they formed a cooperative. So that if someone's working and they pulled what little they had together and they were doing well, because if one person hit a bad patch, the other ones would help that other person out. So they all knew they had a safety net, and that's how cooperatives work. And that's how they worked in this country. And it's people pulling together. And I think that, it does work, but when you look at it here, he said that 2/3 of this is Nathan talked his views. He said, I think it's 2/3 of the country are suffering from depression. 2/3. Just think.
Right.
And he reckons the truth movement is suffering from depression as well, because that is a psychological weapon. Because when you've got nothing to look forward to, no ambition in life, what comes along? Depression. And that's it. And this word like job center. So you just do a job flipping burgers, not a career or something that you're very interested in or you've got an aptitude to. No, it's just a job. And I always think that is so degrading. And when my father was in hospital, I was talking to a nurse. I mentioned this last night. And she was one of the nurses that clears up all the muck and the filth and someone pees themselves or something. She clears all the bed linen and all that.
Very important job.
Yes, probably the most important job. And she said she hated it. She said she was a graphic, because she heard me talking to my dad about architecture, and she said, "Well, you're an architect." She said, "I'm a graphic designer." She said, "But," she said, "I said, really? What are you doing here?" She said, "I hate this job." She said, "I've got a phobia about hospitals. I'm a bit squeamish." She said, "But I had to take it because the job centre said that if I don't take it, they'll stop my benefits." And she said, "I wouldn't be able to survive." So she said, "I've had to take this job and I hate every moment of it." And she said, "I'm on antidepressants because I dread Monday mornings coming to work." And that's terrible.
I think we all have moments like that, don't we, up and down throughout our life, and don't really know what it is. You just feel like you have no interest in the outcome of things. You just go, this is so bad and awful that I don't really want to be around. I don't want to be around. So I really do feel for her. And of course, it's dismissed. And so depression. Obviously, people think. I used to think it's like, I'm really fed up. And of course, that is part of it. But I think it's a much more subtle thing than that. It's this removal of a sense of being connected to life. You don't want to be connected to it. Everything kind of loses its meaning, and there's no purpose in much. And this is the key thing. And this is, of course, what communism brings. And it's what a nanny state. It's what a nanny state brings. What they do is they say, we're going to systemize charity. I don't want you to. Who asked you to do that? I don't want you to do that, because when they say, if we systemize it, everybody will have a safety net. Well, what happens is they just get in charge of a safety net that used to exist anyway. You know, what did people just let their parents drop dead? No one did that. When you're in a village, people look after one another. It's a great job. You want to help people, but that whole opportunity to do that has been taken out of national life. Oh, you don't need to do it now. The government are doing it. Well, I didn't invite you to do it. And this is, of course, a part of the Communist Manifesto. Well, it's almost like carers to death. Seriously, it is. And
John Lennon's record, Imagine, do you know that is from the Communist Manifesto, the words to that? Seriously.
Yeah.
It's quite.
Yeah, it's all complete nonsense, complete gay piffle and rot. The whole thing, it's twaddle.
Now,
it is.
Nathan's assertion is both enlightening and as scary as hell. I have avoided the so-called truth seekers. Yeah. Paul and I were talking about it at a couple of weeks ago, as they are going backwards. I once heard described as a stillment and not a movement spot on. So I mean, because he was saying these truth movements, the people are depressed. They're just like meeting and chewing over the old fat. And not really doing anything, just sort of
you get people get locked. They get locked into a kind of fear porn cycle. They just do. Look, it's understandable that you have to look at this stuff, and there is a kind of a compelling nature to it when you first stumble into some of the more hideous things. You just at first you just repulse, and then you go, no, this is probably right because, okay. So, but you have to make a decision about how much of that stuff do you need to know, and what's your goal. So, what happens, I think, for a lot of people is their goal is to actually let other people know that they know all this stuff, and that's it. Well, that's no good. That doesn't make any difference. So what?
And they're looking
and people think, well,
that's the thing. They're looking for a leader, and if you want a leader, just look in the mirror. That leader is looking back at you.
I mean, leadership's an interesting thing, isn't it? I mean, I think about it as well. I don't. The problem with leadership is when it becomes a permanent position. It seems to me, but I do think as an event, at certain moments, it's important if you are in a crew of people and you're under challenging circumstances. You would be very fortunate if amongst your number there was someone who was very familiar with these types of challenging circumstances. For example, you're on a mountain, you don't know how to get off, and one of you is a mountaineer. Well, for the period of you getting off that mountain, that person's the leader.
Yeah,
and that's it. And that's called something that you find out through common sense. And and it's bound to happen because whether we like it or not, we're hardwired for it because it's linked into your survival. It's just absolutely, you're looking for someone under certain circumstances who may be able to do something. It stops becoming a sort of an academic discussion. It becomes a real life and death situation. And so under those circumstances, people move very, very quickly to get behind the strongest and best possible chance for survival. And if it is a human being, that's going to become the leader. It's when that stuff is kind of parlayed into other areas. And it's like hereditary kingship. It was never meant to be hereditary. You don't need it. It's not how it works. You're looking for the,
was it the Witten? Was it Witten they used to select?
Yeah, the Witten.
The Witten.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I knew a girl who she was anthropologist, and very interesting what she said. She said the tribes that have a hierarchy system of big cheese and things like that are the most aggressive, whereas the ones that don't have a hierarchy system, but they respect their elders and they listen to their elders, they are generally the most placid. So the non-hierarchical ones are very placid, whilst the hierarchy ones are very aggressive. It's a very strange thing, but it also depends on location as well. If they've got any enemies around them, then
yes,
they have a hierarchy system. But if they've got no real enemies as such, and they all get on with each other, which there are quite a few areas where that happens, then no, they're quite peaceful, quite. But the thing that gets me is that we got to sort of worship people because they've got uniforms on and things like that. I don't take that. I mean, it's, for example, Charlie Boy. They say he's the king. So what? I mean, I don't know him. I've never met him. He might be a nice bloke. I don't know. I've never met him. All I'm seeing is a PR image of him because they use the best PR, and so does government, that our money can buy. So you're going to see a nice image of him, whatever happens.
Yes.
So, it's all. But anyway, what I was going to say, I think we're coming up to our time now. Yes, we're sort of 2 hours. Have you got, when we come off air, do you want to stay on? I'd like to have a few words before you drift off. Would that be all right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Nice. I mean, it's absolutely flown by. Eric, the time's just flown by. It's just gone 2 hours. Unbelievable. It really has.
But what we're planning in the future, this is what's coming up in the future. So this is my schedule, and what I do when I update it, because it's moving all the time. The schedule, it's not stationary. I sort of send copies through to people so they can see when there's spare times and things like that. But we're going to do on the 22nd. It was going to be next Sunday, but that's been booked, so it's going to be on the 22nd. Granny Knows Best, and Dr. Miles Fleetwood is going to be on there, and we're hoping to have a round table discussion. Of course, you're invited, Paul, and what Lovely. He is an acupuncturist. You know about Miles, don't you? I think I told you.
I do.
Miles.
Yeah.
And hopefully I'm going to drag him on there. I've got the cucumber sandwiches. Okay, come Miles, come on, boy, come on. Just sort of tempt him on, trap him into coming on. But by the way, he uses don't tell anybody, an Apple Mac computer, and I know.
They used to be very, very good. Oh, yes, look, we can't get all technically snotty, can we? No, we can't.
No, he's got all the singing and dance, the one that makes you a cup of tea and scratches your back. He's got the latest one out, and but he still can't get on air with it. I said, we'll get a PC, But no, actually, they are good. Apple Macs are good. I mean, I've got one that's prehistoric, and by the way, did you know that batteries can get pregnant? My battery went on it.
I was thinking about that, earlier on in the show, and I thought if they do ask you if you're pregnant, I think maybe a good answer would be yes, I am pregnant, but it's not for the first time, and that would be good. Yes, I've got 8 children from my previous pregnancies. Okay.
Well, but I bought a battery off of eBay, and I fitted it into the Apple Mac, and suddenly it's swelling up.
I think,
absolutely. Wider the battery. I don't know what's happening to it. Still works though, but the screen's sort of coming more and more sort of departing from the base. It's just sort of
Isn't that question though, Eric, where humour really has to kick in, because they're obviously asking it to get people to go, how outrageous and all that kind of stuff, right? So maybe you react like that, but the best thing to do is to just
laugh.
It's to exaggerate it. I'm pregnant. I'm nearly always pregnant. I've got 32 children.
Yeah.
Are you not pregnant?
He's pregnant, isn't he?
I can't believe you even had to ask me. Why did you have to ask? It's obvious that I'm pregnant, isn't it? Anybody looking at me would see just how pregnant I am. Come on. Where's your instincts? Stupid bugger.
Or then take your afterbirth in.
I'll just go get it. I've left it in the car. Can you hold on?
Hang on a minute. It's in the potty.
Yeah.
Here it is.
Yeah.
But no, quite honestly, I think we should, when Keir Starmer comes on, we should whistle Laurel and Hardy tune. And just laugh at him. Just keep laughing. That's what we've got to do.
Well, maybe we need to ask him, Keir, are you pregnant?
Perhaps that's the reason he's like that.
Yeah, maybe he's pregnant. That's what we ought to make out, right? He's got morning sickness. He's not thinking straight. He's pregnant. Right, and that's obviously what's going on, really. Yeah, Keir Starmer's pregnant, and that's obviously why it's been introduced into this questionnaire, because it's to cover up for the fact that he's up the duff.
Well, it's just 6 blades of truth movement. Take note. Wars are won by the side that gives up second. So don't give up. Great chat this evening. Thanks. Well, yeah, Germany second during World War II, didn't they? Is one still entitled to free? By the way, Aunt Sally says, is one still entitled to free dental care when they're pregnant? Now that's an idea. I don't know. What's that got to do with pregnant?
I don't know. Does something happen to your teeth when you're pregnant? It's funny, isn't it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but perhaps maybe I've had a pregnancy for about sort of 40 years or something. I don't know. Anyway, thanks for joining.
Anyway.
Stay
it's been lovely,
there.
Eric. It's been great. It's been really, really good. Yeah, I'll be around, but fantastic and lots of fun, and the time has just literally shot by. Really has. Just like that.
And I had to fit the fart jokes in. I've got to get smut in somewhere. I've got to get my weekly. And as well,
I'm used to it by now, and I brace myself, and I'm getting quite used to it. So it comes with the territory, doesn't it? So there we go. Yeah.
Well, I'm trying to find the outro, which Deb did, and she is bloody clever. So let's give a round of applause as it's going when it gets going on for Deb, because she did this outro, and so thanks for coming on. And you're a regular now, so we've got regulars, and. What I say is, whatever happens. Oh, by the way, before we go, we've got to plug your show, haven't we? So when's your show on?
I'm on. Well, yeah, you can. I'm on Thursday. You'll probably be roped into that. It's getting quite incestuous. But Aunt Sally says you could say you're pregnant to get your teeth fixed for free. Is what I meant. Yeah, of course. Of course. I kind of figured that out. But that's obviously, Aunt Sally. That's what you could do. So, yeah. Well, right. I'm up the duff then. Yeah. That's it. I'm pregnant. We're all up the duff. Can you do my teeth?
Yeah. Well, and of course you could say it's sexist because they I mean, look at that bloke. Did you see that bloke playing hockey in Ireland? The female ladies hockey match. He's a 50-year-old bloke, bald-headed, and he identifies as a female.
I mean. Yeah, but the fact that we even that's part of this thing of hijacking language. The fact that you identify as something, okay, that's fine. Doesn't mean you get treated like that. It means you've got a mental condition. You're unwell.
It's mentally ill. I mean, I look on these people that have these piercings, tongue slits, and all these tattoos over their faces as mentally sick. I really do believe they're mentally ill. There's something wrong with them, because no normal person would want to walk around looking like a freak. They're all right. You might get a small percentage, but I mean, they look ugly. They're horrible, vile.
I think you know what? You're right. I agree with you, of course. And yet some of these people that are covering these things, they're actually really, really good on the inside, probably, nice possibly.
People.
However,
lovely people.
But the issue with it seems this it's to do with this kind of not being able to make your mark in the world type stuff, and so it's ended up just sort of like, look, I've had Botox put in my lips and they're the size of an Indian rubber plant or something. Therefore, you've all got to pay attention to me. Look how odd I look. Isn't this interesting? No, it's not. No, it's sad, and
it's fake. It is sad. I mean, that's the thing. It's fake individualism, because it's not individual, because they're following the crowd. Because I say, oh, this tattoo means so much to me, and this means so much to me, and the fact is, they are following follow the leader. They're not being individual. But by the way, as you worked on the drawing board as well, did you have your drawing board tattoo? Because I have. Here it is.
Yeah. Where is it?
It's just about there. Spot. So you have pencil. On parallel motion, you pull the parallel motion up and it goes boonk and embeds itself into your finger. And everybody has one, either there or no, like that. And because do you know they found one of Shakespeare's pencils? Do you know that? And they don't know whether it's they don't know whether it's a 2B or not to be. Sorry, it's a 2.
Yeah. And anyway, that was really, really awkward moment there at the end.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Well, whatever happened, as I say every week, have a bloody good laugh and good night. Here we go.